If you want to scale without burning out, this video is for you. We're breaking down the 4 leadership roles every founder must master, what I call the 4 hats. Most people think that burnout comes from working too hard, but it doesn't. Burnout comes from wearing the wrong hat at the wrong time. I've coached over 400 businesses using this exact framework, from $500,000 a year side hustles to $50 million companies. All stuck founders have the same problem. They were stuck in one mode and they didn't know how to shift. In this video, you'll learn the 4 hats that every founder must master, which hats you're strongest at and weakest at, and when to wear each one so that your business becomes unstoppable without grinding you down. Let's get into it. Now, before I get into the 4 archetypes or 4 hats, I want to break down how I'll be showcasing them. First is the healthy version, what it looks like when you're doing this hat healthy. Next is the shadow version or the negative version. What does it look like when you're in this hat, but you're doing it the wrong way? Next is how this shows up in your business. What are the ramifications of this hat? Real world application. And last but certainly not least, how to strengthen each of these archetypes. All right, let's get into the king, our first archetype or our first hat. First, the healthy king does 3 major things. The first is they see out into the future. You're living today, but you're looking out there. You understand what's happening in the future. And why do you need to do that? Because the second point is you need to be casting a strong vision for your company. The company needs to know where they're going, and you're the person that creates that for them. And last but certainly not least, what I like to call structure and clarity, or just simply put, order. You're creating order in your company. Now, there's a certain amount of chaos that needs to happen for creativity and things like that. I get it. But overall, there needs to be order in the organization. People need to know what they're doing, what they need to accomplish, how things are done, and how things are managed. Now, on your shadow side, 2 pieces of the shadow side. The first is you're a control freak. You're getting stuck in things that don't have to do with the future. You're getting stuck in the day-to-day. You're fixing other people's problems. Your ego can't let go of just letting other people take care of things. You need to be in everything. And the last piece for the shadow is that they abdicate responsibility. You just completely let go. You don't even own your seat, right? And that happens in businesses, believe it or not. More than likely, though, the control freak is usually taking the reins in this one, but some people just really let go for a period of time. I've seen founders get depressed and just completely let their businesses unwind. And so those are the shadow sides of the king. Now, in your business, what I want you to think about is that you move into an architect. You are creating systems and structure so that people could function inside the kingdom, right? Just imagine if you were a real king, right? You would be having things where people could get their water and their supplies and everything like that. You're architecting what it's like to live in your world. And so that's what it looks like in your business. You go from doer to architect. You build things. You don't do things. You build things so people could do inside of them. Now, inside the real world, how this really looks in your business, first, you cast a 10-year vision, right? You need to see far out into the future. Now, if you can't cast a 10-year vision, I get it. That's not for everybody, but we better be at least 5 years out into the future. And if you're not able to do that, that's because you're spending too much time in the day-to-day stuff that you can't even pick up the signals of what the future would look like. Number 2, in the real world, you need to create an org chart. People need to know their roles. People need to know who they report to. People need to know what their responsibilities are. People need to know what success looks like. And you are the person that provides that for them so that they understand what they need to do. And last but certainly not least, I love creating a decision framework. This is so people are empowered to make decisions without you. How you like to think about things. Even I used to do this. I used to give people a certain dollar amount. So in my company at OCF, I would give someone $1,000. You could spend $1,000 however you need without my permission, or it could be $500, or it would have been $100 for a lower level. But what you need to do is not get bogged down with these little small decisions, because you can't be out here in this 10-year vision if you're not doing that. Now, if you're looking to strengthen your king, there's a few different ways you could do that. One is to journal. And why do I like to journal? Because you need to wrap your head around your thoughts. If you're going to be casting this vision, this isn't something you write one time and you're done. You're journaling about it, refining it, thinking about it. And so I really love the journal. Next is the walks. To me, taking long walks moves my energy. It's a form of meditation. It gets me thinking a little bit different. I get out in nature. I change my environment. I change my scenery. And what that allows me to do is have different thoughts, see things in different aspects. So getting out and taking walks is really important. Next, if you're down for it, I love a good cold plunge. It just brings you to the present moment. It centers you every day. If you could get in the cold and make sure that you're centered and doing that. So 2 to 3 minutes, get in there, catch your breath. It builds discipline, perseverance, and resilience. And last, but certainly not least, this is probably the hardest one, but it's the one that'll strengthen you the most, is that you need to say no more than you say yes. The king is all about focus. And the more things you say yes to, the more things that you are not able to pay attention to what you're supposed to do. So saying no is actually a gift. And a lot of times in our culture, saying no feels bad. So learn how to say no, because you need to protect yourself as a king, because you need to be seeing out in the future and playing a bigger game. Now, if you're wondering where you're at on this in the 4 hats, we got your back. There's some that you're overusing, some that you're not using. We created a scorecard. Click the link below. It has a self-assessment, a deep dive into all these hats and archetypes that I'm going over, as well as a plan for you to strengthen it. It's really great stuff. Click the link and check it out. Now let's move on to the second archetype. All right, the second archetype, my favorite, because this is where every great founder starts, is the warrior. Now, when you're trying to be the healthy warrior, the first thing that you need is discipline. Discipline is the courage to say no, right? Or as Mike Tyson likes to say, doing what you hate like you love it, right? You need to have discipline. The next thing that they do is they protect, right? They protect the team. They're looking out for everybody's well-being. They're strong. They're a strong embodiment of what a warrior needs to be. And the next thing is they serve the mission. They're not there to serve themselves. They're here to serve the mission of the company. You are that embodiment. And when you are being that warrior, you are serving the mission. Now, the shadow side is when you are aggressive, right? That happens to me when I was in my shadow, right? This is aggressive. You just want to get over there and do everything and jump on top of everything. So when you're feeling ultra aggressive, just know that you are being in that shadow side of the warrior. And the other shadow side, believe it or not, which a lot of people could relate to, is burnout. When you are grinding yourself down, when you are not being at your best, that's where that is. Now, when it shows up in your business, it really shows up with focus, okay? That everyone is focused on what they need to do, and that's how it shows up as a warrior in your business. A real-world example of this is an example. You need to be the model employee for your company. I see a lot of founders coming late for meetings, checking their phones at meetings, parking here, doing this, there, all of that stuff. Well, guess what, pal? You are setting an example for everybody in your company that that's okay to act that way. So just remember that you are the example. You are the model employee. You show up on time. You get your work done. You are focused. You are serving that mission. All of that happens inside of that world. Now, how to strengthen. First is you need to train your body and mind. Think about a samurai. Think about a good samurai. They're training, they're working on their craft, they're working on their body, they're working on their mind. You are constantly thinking that you are a vessel to serve this mission. Now, after you're working on being a vessel to serve this mission, the other thing you need to do to strengthen this is routines. Routines and rituals. And I know some of you became an entrepreneur, so you didn't have any rules, you didn't have any routine, you didn't have any structure. But remember what I said, you are the example. So if you are that person that doesn't have any of that, how can you expect your employees to have that? I want you to think about ultimately what the warrior is about is the model person for the company. Now, when I was building my business, and more than likely this is you when you're building your business, we all start here. We have to get stuff done. We have to focus. We have to make things happen. And what happens a lot of times, it happened to me till I learned this, it happened with a couple other founders that I work with, is that you need to realize that you need to let go of this doing and use it as a tool to train other people in what they need to be. You need to produce other warriors by being an example. You don't need to be doing the warrior stuff and the killing anymore. You know, when I'm talking about this, I'm going to reference the samurai a lot when it comes to warriors. I'm going to tell you a story. There was a samurai. He was a part of a village, and this village was attacked by an assassin. And so this samurai went after him, hunted him down, just kept looking for him. And one day he found him. and he knocked him down, and he was standing on top of him, and he was about to pull out his sword and just take care of business and chop his head off, right? And that guy, the assassin, looked up at him and he spit in his face. And that samurai stopped and he sheathed his sword and he let that guy run away. And everybody in the village couldn't believe that he did that. He let him run away. But the samurai only kills in duty and not emotions. And he told everybody in the village that you are doing things from a mission standpoint. You are not getting ahead of yourself. You are not getting overzealous. You're not running into your emotions and letting them run your world. That's what it's about to be the warrior. Discipline, protect, serve the mission. Make sure you're not being too aggressive. You're not burning out. You're always thinking, you're always focusing on what matters. You're a prime example for everybody in the company. You're training your mind, body, and spirit, and you have routines and rituals to keep you on track so that you could be the best warrior possible. Our third archetype is the magician. This is a bad drawing of a brain. I hope you don't think it's a cloud, but that's what the magician is all about, thinking. And now when a magician is thinking at its best, they're serving at its best, they're solving complex problems. Right? They're thinking big problems, how things affect this and that and all those different directions. The next thing that they're doing is that they're building systems, right? And that's what usually solves complex problems is systems. They're building things together to make things work together. And they're always thinking long-term, okay? They're thinking about how all of this comes together and works together. Now, you might be thinking this is like the king, but the king is more about the vision and the magician is about how this all happens in the day-to-day, how all these systems get built and how they all function. Now, when the magician is in their shadow, the first thing that they do is they overplan, right? Some of you people just out there just thinking too much and doing all of that stuff. Now, that's not great either. You want to make good plans, but you don't want to overplan. You want to trust what you're doing. The next thing that they do is they disconnect emotionally. And why does this matter? Because when they disconnect emotionally, they're losing touch of really what they're trying to do and they're trying to create. And the last thing, and certainly not least, what comes with overplanning is that they avoid execution. Now, this part of you needs to be there. This magician needs to be there so that you could architect this whole thing out for your business, right? So you could think about doing that. Think about the king setting the vision and the magician making it happen, almost that visionary COO, visionary integrator relationship. And for a lot of us in our business, we got to play all these roles right now. You could hire people later on, but you need to know what that role is supposed to be doing. And when they overplan, when they disconnect emotionally, when they avoid execution, that magician is in their shadow. Now, a magician in the business, what I want you to think about is leverage, right? They create SOPs, systems, anything to multiply results. They're doing things so you could really scale. The magician helps the business scale the most, okay? Now, in the real world, what you're doing, you're creating SOPs, KPIs, documenting your processes. You're getting all of this stuff together so that the business could scale. And that is ultimately what this magician is about, is that part of your brain that could think about scaling, going from 10 million to 20 million to 30 million. What do we need to build? What needs to be in place? What does the team look like? The magician solved those problems for you. And so that's why you need to tap into that magician. You're not there casting magic spells. You're there building things so that you could scale a great business. All right, now if you want to strengthen your magician, the biggest thing you got to think about is developing a strategic or a system mind, right? You got to study models of other businesses, how other things sort of work, how things get interconnected there. And to do that, you need to take some time for yourself. I like to take some saunas, anything, walks, to give yourself time to think, to really map things out. You should have a whiteboard like this so you could draw flow charts and workflows and see how things work and talk to people and understand constraints, because ultimately your strategic mind is what you need to be doing to become a great magician, because it's about leverage. It's about multiplying results. And that's what's super important when you're trying to tap into that magician. So make sure you're thinking strategic, you're thinking system-oriented, process-oriented, KPI-oriented, dashboards, making sure that everything runs seamlessly in the organization so that you can keep growing. Okay, last archetype, last hat is the lover, right? We talked about the king. The king is about the vision. The warrior is about grit and getting things done. The magician is about systems and processes. And the lover, well, it's a heart for a reason, right? They care about people. They connect with their people. And most importantly, when they're in the healthy version, they're building the culture. They're taking time to build the culture. And that's what's super important. Now, when they're in their shadow, a couple things could happen. They get overly emotional, right? Happens when we take things personally, right? That happens sometimes. Next thing is they avoid setting boundaries or hard conversations. They avoid either one. And that's what happens. You can become a little too selfless, a little too caring about people and not saying the right things to them. I just had a conversation, no joke, on my way home to record this video with a founder that's been putting off a hard conversation. And now it's at the point where it's so gigantic that he has to do it. And if he would have had that hard conversation right when that issue came up, I guarantee you it wouldn't have been so hard. But avoiding these conversations is the shadow side of the lover. So if you catch yourself doing that, that's the shadow side. Sometimes the most caring thing we could do for someone is have a hard conversation. Now, what does this look like in the business? This is the soul of the business. This is that heartbeat inside of the culture. This is what everybody knows as the embodiment of the culture, of our core values, right? That's super important for this lover. Now, real world application, right? Great kickoffs and meetings with gratitude. So when you have a meeting, you share some gratitude with people. Okay. The next thing is you could do thank you cards, handwritten notes to people that you really care about inside your company. Hey, Tim, thanks for so much for riding this wave with me. I just want you to know that you're really appreciated and I love you. Another way that you could do it is with one-on-ones. Okay. And having some one-on-ones and connecting with your people and more than just business. Every single company that I've worked with, I encourage every founder to have a one-on-one every week with their direct report because you need to get the pulse of what's going on in the business. And sometimes the work is just part of the pulse, but you need to understand everything. What's going on with Frank at home with his kids? What's going on with Lisa and her husband right now? Is there something that I need to be thinking about, working around, giving support? One-on-ones are really important. How do you strengthen this? That's also part of it, right? You have one-on-ones. You start connecting with your people, 15 minutes, buy them a cup of coffee, go for a little walk, and just connect with them as people because at the end of the day, you're a human and they're a human. They need to know that. Another way that you could strengthen it, you need to meditate. You need to meditate here because you need to focus on self-care. Because how can you not become over emotional and avoid setting boundaries if you aren't taking care of yourself? You need to be in that good place, that healthy version of yourself that can make everyone feel great. And if you're not taking care of yourself, that's going to be a hard place to be. Now, the king is all about vision, structure, and order. The warrior is about taking action and grit. The magician is all about systems and scaling. And the lover is all about empathy and culture. Now you could see why these are all needed inside of your business because they all play a part in how you could be successful and scale your company. Most founders I know only have one hat dialed in, but you will be unstoppable when you have all four. So here's the next step. Download the 4-Hat Scorecard. It's free, it's fast, and it'll show you exactly where your leadership is and what you need to do to make it even better. And if you're ready to stop playing whack-a-mole in your business, let's book a strategy session. We'll talk about your leadership, your business, and exactly what you need to do to scale without burning out. You weren't meant to do this alone. Let's get to work. Thanks for watching.